But first, what's the first thing that we do before we apply any of those things we just
repeat ask what.
Okay, the keyword here is ask. Because if you don't ask, there's no way you can find out. And it's not a shame to ask, it's a shame not to ask. Because if you don't ask, you remain in the dark side of the universe without understanding the meaning. The problem with people is that we often think about what other people think. For example, what would my colleagues say if I said I didn't understand? Or what would the teacher think about me if I said I didn't understand? But we don't come to the university to build a fictitious image of a flawless person. We come to the university to gather knowledge. So basically the element of fear is something that works against us. Therefore, I encourage you to ask questions if something isn't clear. And I know that there are some teachers who say, never interrupt me in class, or don't dare interrupt me in class, or only ask questions in the end, or only ask questions when I say, go ahead and ask questions. But, okay, maybe if the teacher is a genius who cannot concentrate if they're being disrupted, we can make an exception. But generally, teachers are human just like you are, and they have kids at home, probably of your age, and they have absolutely no problem with dealing with questions. Therefore, you should never be afraid to ask questions. If you don't ask a question, then that's the first step towards not understanding. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, what about his case? It's an interesting problem, because that thing is based on knowledge we were supposed to know 5 or 7 years ago, or if you're in the 3rd year, and we studied that in the 12th grade in high schools. If you didn't know it back then, you have to realize that knowledge is like stacks of layers of information. If you don't understand the underlying material, it's not very likely that you'll understand that. So that's why it's important to ask questions here. For example, if you have a question here, ask it today, not tomorrow or the day after or 3 days from now, because then it's going to be too late. You will get a lot of other questions, because if this thing doesn't work, then up there is going to be nothing but question mark. And this is what forces us to do rote learning before the exam, because you didn't understand the underlying principles. The only option you have to pass the exam is to squeeze it into your brain and then somehow try to write it down on the paper when the teacher says write it down. But of course, you will forget it tomorrow or the next day and so on.